Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final of the Location Manager Guild International's Meet the Finalists Zoom panels. I'm Sasha Alvarez-Denisoff, a Los Angeles-based locations professional. For this panel, we're going to be speaking with many of our finalists for limited series and commercials. We've been doing these panels for about 5 years now, and for long as we've been doing them, it still never ceases to amaze us what it takes behind the scenes for the location professionals who scouted and managed these productions to pull it all off. Huge congratulations to all of our finalists. We're so happy to have you here and to listen to your stories. And I also wanted to take a minute to tell you about the LMGI, especially for those of you who might not be members yet. The LMGI is a nonprofit 501c6 whose sole reason for existence is to promote what location professionals like you and I do for a living and to celebrate excellence on location. We're sort of your public relations arm for the profession, educating and elevating awareness to the public, government agencies, producers, directors, and even the rest of the crew on what it is that we all do, and particularly our contributions to the creative process. We do that through programs like these Zoom calls, through events, advertising, educational panels, and proactive public relations efforts such as outreach to magazines and newspapers and other promotional opportunities. Additionally, the LMGI publishes the absolutely gorgeous Compass magazine, which is filled with photographs from your fellow location professionals. We're almost 100% volunteer managed, with the exception of our lovely communications and operator director, Erica Howard, who is with us on this call. Please wave and say hello. Thank you so much for everything. And with that said, we really do need your membership subscriptions in order to keep all of these things going. So there are various levels that coincide with your level of experience for where you are in your career, whether it's an apprentice up to emeritus. If you don't know about us, if you aren't a member yet, please check us out at locationmanagers.org. So with all of that, I'm going to hand this over to our first panel, which is Lockerbie, A Search for Truth, and that's going to be moderated by our very own JP O'Connor.
Hello, Leon.
Hi, JP. Hi, man.
So you did Lockerbie. You've also done Blitz and Peaky Blinders and Downton Abbey, the film. But this is the thing you're most proud of, because we all kind of lived through some of this. I was living in England at the time, but you had some funny stories. So I'd like you to start off with the airport.
Yeah, uh, yeah. It was. I think I'm most proud of this because obviously it's based on a real event, something that is within living memory. Um, and it was the kind of job that we basically had every challenge imaginable, from kind of remote coastlines to airports, which is kind of what you alluded to. So there was a whole host of scenes that we had to do in an airport, and if anyone's filmed in an airport, landside and airside, you know the challenges of getting 100 cast and 100 crew airside through all the security clearances, and it's like going on holiday. It's the same thing. So you go through all of the scanners, all the equipment needs to be checked. You have to have your passport in hand. It's like going on holiday, but and the crew are like, hey, why do we have to do this? So the logistics, it's months and months of planning to kind of do it. And of course, we're staging Colin Firth taking a bomb through the airport, and we want to take replica guns in and dogs and all those kinds of things. So we got to the planning stage, got to the delivery stage. We're there and we are filming, and it's going well. But the folks at the airport said, okay, the only wild card that could possibly happen is if we get an unscheduled American military plane land. It never happens though, never happens. So don't worry about it. Of course, on our 30-minute pre-call on the second day, an unscheduled American military plane lands, decamps 150 American soldiers into all of the areas that we need to facilitate the shoot. The only space they didn't go into was actually the location airside, the clean side, as opposed to the dirty side, which is landside. So literally, we had to. It seems crazy, but we had to reconfigure everything. My location assistants were going to the RV place, half an hour from the airport, convincing them to hire us an RV so we could bomb check it, drive it onto the airfield and round, so that Colin Firth could just step off because we had nowhere to put him. We literally had nowhere to put him. So I had to walk him through all of the American soldiers who were quite confused by seeing him kind of just wander through, kind of, but with a shock of grey hair. Uh, it was just bonkers. It was just one of the countless random things, despite the best laid plans. Yeah, it was just bonkers. They were really apologetic. We always make it happen somehow, and it was, yeah, it was wild. But that's just one of many things. But it always makes me laugh. And my team, as always, it's like raising kids, isn't it? You always say it takes a village. It takes a massive village to kind of deliver any kind of show. So whilst might be the faces of that, there's so many amazing people from our teams and the whole crew that make it happen. But my team really pulled it out of the bag in getting an RV. They had to convince them that we're actually using it as a shoot and not just going off with it.
A random person saying, "Hey, can I borrow your RV and pay you for it?"
Yes, and showing them pictures of and call sheets, like, look, and they're like, hey, we don't know what a call sheet is. You know, why do you want this very expensive mobile home? In fact, we convinced them. They drove it to the set themselves, and then could see that it was a real thing. And then we had to kind of bomb check it and get the mirrors underneath it and all that kind of stuff. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a good beginning of a story, isn't it?
And then film, and
And
that was the start of a 12-hour day.
it doesn't get better than that, right?
Yeah. The sense of achievement at the end of that day, always amazing. Always amazing.
Yeah. So you sent some pictures I want to try to share, and we can talk through the the screenshots.
Yeah,
So,
apologies. It was probably sort of a scatterbrained smorgasbord of.
no, you just did these screenshots. So I was going to have you comment on these, and come on, move over. Okay, you move over. No, it moves over there. Can you everybody see the screenshots?
Yes, there's a desert.
Yeah. Okay. Ah, there it is. So you want to talk us through what some of these are? This is him going off to see Gaddafi.
Yeah, so this is central Glasgow. Uh, no, this is my counterpart in Morocco, Tufik, who I don't think I could make the panel.
Yeah.
I mean, Lockerbie touched so many lives and is a real international story. So across England, Scotland, Malta, Libya, um, Netherlands, US. So the story kind of jumps around everywhere. So what Tufik and his team did was recreate lots of our Middle Eastern elements, like the Maltese elements, but did them in Morocco. So this is it was a great shot. So this is Colin Firth going to meet Gaddafi in the desert, which
For the
is
second
incredible.
time.
I mean, this story is absolutely incredible. And we were saying before, JP, weren't we, that you could tell this story in any, this a slick sort of, espionage kind of, all sorts of different ways. But because this is centered around the victim and the victim's family and those who are immediately affected, and this amazing story of Jim Swire, the fact that just a GP, a local doctor from England, then ends up meeting Gaddafi to ask him directly, "Did you murder my daughter?" is crazy, absolutely crazy.
I'll click over to the next guy. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, I'll go back to that. Where is that?
So this is on the Isle of Skye. So this is the Kerrang in Skye, which is just this sort of epic vista. It's right up in the northwest edge of Skye. So yes, this is the little car there is Jim Swire and his family, because they used to holiday and he grew up in the Isle of Skye. So yeah, we went up there and it's just epic landscapes.
So that's where the village was as well.
Yeah, not quite on that peak.
Okay.
But he yeah, they would go up there. They had a little cottage on the beach, so that's where they would go to for sanctuary to escape the press, because he did have a huge amount of press attention because it was the only way you could kind of keep pressure on different governments to to push for answers really. So yeah.
I'll switch over to another. That was the village that he was ostensibly going to.
It was. This isn't the actual village, but here it's this beautiful coastline on the east coast of Scotland, and we use this church and this chapel as the graveyard for where they would visit his daughter Flora.
And then we'll go to crash stuff. So that's an amazing shot of what you guys did.
I mean, what was really challenging was because this was a real event. There was real news footage. There's real archive material that is out there, and the director and the team very much wanted to make it really immerse you in it. So we had to. There was at least three component parts. There was the real news footage, which we used, and it interspersed quite liberally in different sequences, which is intercut with a real street that we found that was a really good match for Sherwood Crescent, which was the quiet residential street where parts of the plane landed and just, you know, vaporized parts of the street and created a massive crater. Just houses
Looking
disappeared.
over to that.
And then intercut also and blended together with some art department elements, because particularly the fireball and lots of stuff that you would really struggle to do in any residential street. And the real challenge was and that was in the forefront of our minds was the sensitivity of telling the story properly. Because I mean, it is in living memory, and what we found going on a day-by-day basis, you'd meet people who had been affected by it, who had been there, whether it be the hotel concierge. On one day we spoke to, he was a policeman at the time on that night, or the neighbor of our main location, her brother was the defense attorney for one of the Libyans. It was like every step of the way. So then recreating a key scene, particularly in episode 1, which starts with the crash. It was all about how do you tell a story accurately and truthfully and sensitively, whilst also not bringing that trauma right into the households of the people on the streets that you'd be recreating this drama in. So we made the decision early on not to actually go back to the town of Lockerbie, but very much recreated elements in real environments, a bit of backlot interwoven with the news footage.
Where did you do the crash site?
I mean, the street itself. So this is a street. This is Sherwood Crescent. So I think this, I can't tell if it was so good because we had a lot of debris on the real street and a backlot. We had a massive field with a certain camber that we found, and they chopped up a 747 that we had to kind of lay the wreckage across a field and dress a crash site, and then film the whole sequence, both the crash at night and then the realization, the dawning of the next day of what had actually happened. So that was filmed sort of in the central Scotland, above Bathgate, and yeah.
That was like a studio you had up there as well for some interior stuff.
The only studio build we did was the courtroom, because they got the exact plans where the Libyans are tried in Camp Zeist, which was a temporary Scottish court that was set up in the Netherlands. They reconstructed the exact courtroom, built to the same spec. The only bit of backlot was the elements of the street that we wanted to be on fire, because we of course couldn't do that in a real
And the debris field.
Yeah. And then the debris field was a real field on an estate that we found to try and kind of keep it as private as possible.
I mean, when you watch the when you watch the show, it's so traumatic when because you would never actually visualize seeing it, is when you see all the pieces of the plane falling on people or houses while it's coming apart, flying, and after it's blown up. It's a pretty horrifying thing to see.
I mean, it's the only show I've worked on, and it's kind of why having done Peakies and Downton and Blitz and a whole host of other things, I'm proud of and was privileged to work on. This by far and away is the production I'm most proud of. I mean, it's the only time I've ever sort of kind of started crying in meetings, because when you're planning it and you have the art department models of the street and you're talking about where and the bodies are going to be, it's kind of and then that, because we get so caught up in the logistics of we need to do this, how do we do this, but there was constant those moments where you get pulled out of it,
Yeah.
and you realize the enormity of what you're recreating.
Can we leave on a light note about the otters?
Yeah, sorry.
It would tell the story about the otters.
Oh man, yes, the otters. So, what there was a bridge that the director wanted to find, and underneath that bridge, we kind of wanted Colin Firth playing Jim Swire and his wife Jane, played by Catherine McCormack. It was a moment where they could sit and kind of have an intimate moment, and this married couple, and reflect. It'd been a special moment to them in their marriage. So, but later on in the series, we need to feel a sense of peril, like Jim might throw himself off the bridge because he's so traumatized by the process of fighting for justice. So we looked at dozens and dozens of bridges. We found the perfect one the director liked, got permissions. A few days before we were due to film, a member from the council had been away on holiday, as always, for weeks on end, came back and then found out about the filming and said, you can't film there. We've just reintroduced otters into that river. They're protected. They're protected. So you can't film that. If a film crew with lights, and we're like, oh, what? We've got permission. What do you mean? So we the director wouldn't settle for any other bridge. So I mean, literally days before, I'm getting ecologists out, commissioning surveys, becoming incredibly knowledgeable about the difference between resting otters, breeding otters, and passing otters, and understanding. We always become specialists, don't we, for micro moments of to try and solve a problem. So we observed this section of river. There was no passing, resting, or nesting otters in that section. So we managed to get the report that, with moments to spare, that kind of kept that location in. And we filmed the scene, and no one ever knows the drama behind the scenes and me pulling my hair out about otters.
Well, thank you for the story. I gotta pass it on along. Thanks so much. Look forward to meeting you in person.
You're welcome. Thank you, JP. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leon.
Thank you, Leon.
All right. And now we're going to be speaking with our lovely folks from Adolescents. I have with us first-time nominees, Tom Bartram, Sharon Wood, and Sam Ganny. Thanks for being with us today. Where are you today?
Thank you.
We're in Manchester, UK, and just want to say congratulations to everybody else in the category, and we're super proud and happy to be amongst you guys,
Yeah, 100%.
Well, fantastic. Everyone has really great projects to be proud of. To quickly sort of give some context to this conversation, So Adolescence is about a 13-year-old schoolboy who's arrested on suspicion of murdering a classmate in a quiet, like South Yorkshire neighborhood. And locations were a really critical part of the choreography to this limited series because each episode was filmed in one take. So we have the camera that is traveling seamlessly between interiors and exteriors, a very well coordinated like convoy of vehicles with cameras, drones, and crew in real time. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with a film called Russian Ark that was a early 2000s Russian film. This was probably one of the first feature-length films that did the like one shot, one take thing, and this was at the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, Russia, but that was one location, one self-contained location. And here we are talking about many, many locations and many more moving parts. So can you tell us a little bit about this process, like from inception and at what point you were brought onto the project and just how, because you tell us about these locations, because what was happening?
So I was in quite earlier than the usual job, really, because we had to pin down a production base that was close to a school, that had residential houses close to it. And we never wanted to lose the audience during those driving sequences. We wanted to keep it intense. The episodes are all about pace and the story, telling the story was all about fast paced. So we put a lot of time into looking for a base that would have these kind of ticked all the boxes, but we never really wanted to compromise on the look of the locations either. So we had to put a lot of time into checking the areas out and making sure that the roads was up for it, the councils was okay. So we finally kind of decided on Production Park, which was, it's a place where I'd not heard of, believe it or not. So it's where kind of Beyonce goes to rehearse before going on tour, or like Elton John, Coldplay. So they don't really put it out there that people rehearse there or artists rehearse there. So that's where we ended up. And yeah, thankfully it had the other elements that we needed to film at as well, the locations. So yeah.
And were all of these locations, was anything built?
So the police station and detention centre was built, the Hero House, the school, the crime scene, and all of the drone footage obviously was all location.
In the hardware store.
The hardware store was a wrapping factory, which basically wrapped products to go out, and we managed to convince them to let us take it over for like weeks and make a proper B&Q type store, which is a hardware store. Yeah, that's what we kind of call it here. Which, yeah, I think worked okay. That was a hard one for us because to get into a big hardware store for 3 weeks, because that's what time it was to rehearse and to kind of film, would have been impossible.
Yeah,
really.
and we needed them to be operational as well. Like we needed to make sure that they weren't being hindered by us being there. So it took a lot of prep and a lot of time and care and courtesy to try and make that work.
Yeah.
And then how big was your team on this? Because I imagine there's so many different, sort of like neighbors and businesses that you're maybe having to get on board for all of these moving pieces. So can you talk a bit about like the boots that you had on the ground for this? And maybe Sam can like speak to this as well too, since he was in the day-to-day.
So the core team was 10. That increased to about 25 for episode 2, which was the drone scenes and the school. And then we had people like dressed in like with shopping bags, like I lock off marshals, like dressed as in like normal neighbors or residents to kind of disguise the fact that they was there. We actually had one neighbor that opened the door during one of the filming of the episode 1, I think it was. And Sam, not our Sam on the call, we had to run, duck behind the kind of window and say stop. So we had lots of like little instances like that we just had to kind of pull together and disguise on, during that time. They weren't that much painting out to do with the episodes. Like most of the rehearsing we did, we made sure everybody was out of shot. So yeah, we kind of really had to kind of get that right.
It was critical to have the boots on the ground though, because especially when we were doing everything in particular with the drone that traveled across 2 main roads, we needed every single point locking off, and they couldn't move because originally the drone was going to travel from the school to the crime scene in the supermarket. And then that originally was going to be the end of episode when we travel the drone back and land it back at the school. So we'd still need all those lock off points being manned. We might elaborate on this a little bit later, but later on, as we were going through the episodes, they decided to land the drone in the supermarket, and that gave us our final shot of Stephen Graham and his reaction to the floral tributes at the crime scene. So that changed a little bit, but every lock-off point was absolutely critical.
That decision from production, though, was done during our take week. So basically, we had week 1 would be cast rehearsals, week 2 would be tech rehearsal with all the toys and all the kit on it, all the very closely in place, and week 3 was shoot week. But the decision to land the drone was done halfway through shoot week, so it's completely different to what we'd planned, rehearsed. I think it was like a Stephen or a cast that requested to do this kind of decision like last minute, and the crew pulled together so well.
Amazing.
And actually, the ending was great and much more enhanced than what the original plan was. And I think that was just kind of really organic and something they come up with during the weeks of planning or during the actual filming week. So things kind of happened on the day where, on those rehearsal weeks, where they're like, that would be so much better. So and then we had to kind of make it happen like with the click of a finger, you know.
A lot of a lot of the cast and crew on that episode getting that shot as well were in bits crying with it being such a thing to do. It's not been really heard of. So yeah.
So we've got you for a second. Can you tell us, like, as the boots on the ground for this, as a unit manager, and for the designations for what our job titles are a little bit different, like in every region and every country. A unit manager is probably similar to what a key assistant location manager would be in Los Angeles, or like an assistant location manager in other US jurisdictions, just so people are aware. But you know, you're out there every day. Like, what was one of the most challenging but most rewarding like locations that you had?
I think it was probably episode 1. We had to get a full like estate on board with the first driving sequence. So the very opening sequence is Di Bascom in the car eating an apple, which is static, and it's on a kind of like a Russian arm. The Russian arm that drives off goes through a housing estate up a road and then ends up at the hero house. Now we had to put the due diligence and the work in to that whole, not just the street, but the whole estate, to make sure that people weren't stepping outside of the front doors, everything was safe, and getting that shot to the house and then back to the second location. I think that was probably one of the biggest ones. I think Tom, Sharon, would you agree?
Adding into that though, it seemed to be the 1 week, our recording week, where everybody was having a driveway redone. They were having like building works going on. We had to like stand by with everything. We had to persuade people to work with us, and they were amazing. But suddenly there was garage doors being put in and driveways being put in and garden, and it was just of course it had to be that week, didn't it? You know, and like,
always on the most inconvenient possible time. We always somehow happen to have our shoot on garbage day, you know.
To be honest, it was a really kind of lower privileged background as well, so they'd never really had much filming there. You know, a lot of unemployed, so we had a lot of people really interested, and obviously we worked really well with them to get them on board.
Yeah, because this was one question that I definitely had for you guys as a team, because the hero house was shot practically inside and out, from what I understand. So what went into finding that? Because there's a lot of maneuverability that we have to deal with going in and out of all of these rooms. And you know, how did you settle on this spot? Like, what was your search?
There was a lot, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, we had to time anywhere where we kind of was looking at. We had to time the kind of distance from there to the studio. So we looked at many houses. We looked at red brick houses, which is quite typical. You'd find them in the north of England. We decided not to go for that route and to have one that could be anywhere. We wanted it to be humble and reflect the kind of, this tragedy could happen to any family. We also, if you notice, it's right on the junction. So I'll share a video with you. We wanted it to seem like the police was honing in on a target, and it would enhance that kind of drama there as well.
You follow their journey.
Yeah, so I'll play this for you guys.
Yeah, you got some photo and video to show us, so very curious to see these.
Share this with you guys.
That's it.
So this is the video. I'll show you also the toys on this and the actual recording of it as well. So that was the house that we chose, like I say, right on the junction, just to kind of
Mhm.
seemed like it was a target. And then we've got this video just to show you, which is
Oh yeah, yeah.
this one here. So
Which gives you the split screen with some toys.
this is a kind of approach to the house for the arrest.
And obviously we had road closures in place, stop and hold in place, marshals everywhere to watch the houses, making sure people weren't coming out onto the footpath. Full lockdown.
Wow. The side by side is great to see, you know, sort of the process versus the final product. What other thing, did you have some other documents to share with us?
Yeah,
we
so
do,
we've
yeah.
got,
Let's take
we
a
thought
look.
we'd show a few behind the scenes videos. So this was the drone for episode 2.
So again, full road closures in place. At this
Yeah.
point, I think we've got 12 marshals on the separate side street, taking us over to what is our supermarket location.
And then we've got another, this is actually, no, we've got another one here.
No, it's that one.
So, this is the episode 4 where we was driving to the hardware store.
Yeah.
We actually had a rolling road closure for this, which is kind of like what you'd get if you was having like a Santa sleigh traveling through the city or through a local town. So we had a big convoy here. The director was sat in a minibus kind of watching it happen as well. And this was a slider, what the camera was on there, and obviously a pod car driver there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, it's crazy that we did all that within one shot. It kind of, you forget that everything was rehearsed and impeccably timed. So that watching this back, it's quite
key,
mind-blowing, isn't it? Yeah.
So episode 2 obviously was the school where we had the drone. That was a multi-road closure, lots of stop and holds. And we were very locked into set time frames. And for like the town that we were filming in is a very sleepy industrial town. There's 3 industrial estates. And the route that we wanted to shut down was the main HGV route. Of course, it is.
Yeah.
So we were very limited on what our time frames were. And so that not only helped lead us a lot, but also caused a lot of high intensity, shall we say, because there was points where we might have had to delay starting the take by a couple of minutes, and those couple of minutes could make a big difference. We were very fortunate because we had all those rehearsal times and all the tech rehearsal times that the only time we ever had to stop and go back to the beginning was when we were filming episode 1. But when we got to episode 2, we were a bit nervous about it because of the time frame, but everything was seamless. We just kept going, and it was amazing, and everybody pulled in together. And then the drone was able to do the travel and come back. We had stunts and near misses, and
I mean, we had 300 kids on that episode, right? That it was at peak of the summer, really hot. We actually got the school on board.
Yeah,
the school was really kind of concerned about the storyline and getting involved, and we kind of had to win them over. And but Stephen Graham was never shooting with the kids, and they was just so desperate to meet with him. And so we have actually got a video of surprising the kids. So this is Stephen surprising the kids.
They didn't know we were coming either.
Oh, very fun. It's a warm welcome. We must move on. Thank you so much, Tom, Sharon, and Sam. Congratulations again on your nomination, and looking forward to seeing what you guys do next.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to pass this over to Gina Vreeland, who is going to be speaking to our finalists from American Primeval.
Hello, I'd like to welcome Christian Diaz. I said it okay before. De Bedoya.
You got it.
Anyway, so before I was asked to be the moderator for American Primeval, I actually watched it, and one of my friends encouraged me to go see it, and I really enjoyed it. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of The Revenant in terms of like a really harsh environment to work with. And I remember when that movie came out, you heard all these stories from the crew, you know, about how difficult it was and stuff. So it was no surprise to me when I did a little homework that you guys worked in very hard conditions and you were out on location. It's pretty much 100% out on location. Can you tell me about that? And especially day one. I mean, it's from day one, you were getting
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. First day of filming, I'm driving from Albuquerque out to the reservation, Coche de Pueblo, which is between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, where, you know, probably 70% of the film took place, or of the series. And yeah, predominantly location. We only had an interior cabin set that we actually built in an airplane hangar, so it wasn't even a stage. So it's almost like a location as well. And then following the writer's strike, when we came back, we had about 20 days left of filming until the writer's strike kind of got in the way of things. And that's the only real set that we built at a soundstage, which was the inside of a cave for that whole cave scene of them getting smoked out. But that was our only set, aside from this interior cabin that we built in an airplane hangar. But yeah, the very first day, I'm leaving at 3 in the morning, and it's a blizzard, early January, mid-January, and we're all worried that we're, you know, because New Mexico's kind of hit and miss with the snow in low elevations. You know, low elevation for us is 5,000 feet. And sure enough, I mean, I was driving, you know, 40 miles away, and it was a whiteout blizzard going 35, 40 miles an hour on the freeway with my head sticking out the window because you can't see anything, knowing that you have to be there before everybody and turn everything on and light it up so the crew can get there. And yeah, and we shot this amazing opening scene that wasn't even in this show at the end of it all, because they changed the opening.
Oh,
And,
oh.
yeah, a lot of amazing material was shot on that show that never, you know, never got to the floor, you know.
Yeah, you know, I wish there was like this little forum between us professionals who could just put together all the stuff that just hit, you know, the floor. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, so because I would like
Make
to
a whole episode out of it, basically.
So tell us about the set with it was a steep mountain pass and the actors were on horseback and then an accident happened. Talk about that.
Yeah, so originally towards the end of the show, one of the very climactic scenes was originally scripted. You had our traveling, I don't know how many people know the show or watched it, but we have a group of like, you know, 4 travelers. You know, one of them's a kid, 12-year-old kid, and they're on horseback going across some of the strongest wilderness areas, like, you know, around Wyoming, between Wyoming and California. And they're going through a steep mountain pass. And originally, we needed to find, you know, a steep mountain pass that we could, you know, film out with all the gadgets, all the toys, all the snow. And of course, that became very challenging to, you know, to get. So they rewrote it in such a way that instead of them, you know, this character falling off a horse 60 feet down below, breaking his leg, and then them having to rescue it, it turned in more into like traveling up a steep mountain pass, and then he falls off the horse, and the horse kicks his leg and shatters his leg, which was also more, you know, more attainable with the heavy weather conditions that we had. But we did take a stab at creating creating a steep mountain pass, and we actually did that at a quarry, an old rock quarry close to Coche de Pueblo. And I have a couple images to show if you guys want. Let me show you what that kind of looked at. And we were getting set to actually film that. Let's see here. And that is actually when the writer's strike got to us and shut us down. So, can you guys see this or no? Let's see.
Yeah.
The wrong window. You guys seen the big image?
Well, I see that there's
Little thumbnails.
13. Yeah, I see the thumbnails.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me try this again. 1 second. Let me open that. Okay, now we'll try it. There. Okay, so this is, a couple of images of, we went into this rock quarry. We had to clean a lot of it out. We had to bring in, fake snow, and we were creating our own ridge to be able to accommodate, this steep mountain pass. These are some of the prep photos when we were getting the set ready. But as you can see, we needed lighting, we needed camera cranes. It was going to be near impossible to attain the shots and what they wanted on a real mountain, going up, 15,000 feet and taking a whole crew up there. And the ski resorts also were not going to close for us. So we were, very dependent on schedule. But we were, creating, if you can see here, kind of a zigzag pattern, and we were going to snow this out. And we were on the eve of actually starting to shoot this sequence when picketers right outside the gate of this quarry finally got to us. And, we had to, we couldn't shoot that day, which led to a whole other fiasco. Was during the writer's strike, if you all remember that, shows were getting shut down from picketers, and we managed to stay on tribal land on the reservation where the public isn't allowed to come onto. So we were every single day adjusting our schedule and having to change locations on the fly to be able to continue filming as much as we could until we eventually had to leave the reservation, which was this location. And we knew that we would probably get, shut down at that point, which is why, we took the pause, and then we came back and finished 25 days or so of the shoot, the following year. And that's when we changed the opening scene and created the train station that you infamously see where the whole show starts, as opposed to the snowy blizzard we actually did shoot on day one.
So you mentioned that there was a challenge that you had to solve pretty quickly, and it had to do with the water levels.
Oh yeah, we had a sequence where there's characters on both sides of a river, and there's these rapids that are impeding, the bad guys from getting to the good guys. And in order for us to be on both sides of the river, we had to coordinate with the Army Corps of Engineers up in Abiquiu to see if they would close the dam, shut down the dam, to be able to drop the water level to safely be able to get horses and actors to the other side of the river, the Rio Chama. And it was a big ask because water here in New Mexico is very important to the farmers, to the ranchers. There's not enough of it. And it was something where, the river levels here, you scout it 5 times with everybody, on the tech scout, and the water level's perfect, everything's great. And then the week before you go, it's extremely high, it's running extremely fast. Producers, everybody's in a panic saying, what are you going to do about this? And we had, like 48 hours to get the Army Corps to get approval to be able to shut down, the flow of the river. And amazing tip of the hat, cowboy hat to them, because they came through in the nick of time, and we were able to drop, about 4 feet the level of the river so that we could actually shoot the scene for a day. And that happened in less than a week.
Wow. Wow. So now I know, that you had to pivot quickly as a department because of all the weather changes. Was there a particular time that really stood out where you had to think really fast and then, was able to make things happen?
Yeah, there was one when we were shooting up at Pajarito Mountain. I'll share a couple images while I talk about that so they see this set. We built the exterior of this cabin up on the side of the mountain. And of course, we were on full winter, blizzard watch. In the first 2 weeks of the show, aside from the opening day that I spoke about earlier, after that, the first 2 weeks of the show were up in this mountain because we needed to make sure that we had a lot of snow in January, February, because after that it's like hit and miss. And that whole time, we had to be, alert with any blizzards or big storms that come through, because when they come through really fast. So I think we had a close call and we wrapped early, and we managed to get the crew down off the mountain on one of those days. And then, of course, it's we want to make sure we have a lot of snow, and then it's like, okay, now we need to plow all of the snow out of the way so we can actually get to the location. The other thing was we had a lot of sequences with horses struggling through the blizzard and struggling through deep snow.
Mhm.
And we found locations and had everything perfect for that. But then, Animal Humane, who was on set, said, well, we can't let you have these horses go into 3 feet of snow. So
Mm.
in a sense, we had to carve out the horse paths along the mountain. And a lot of this was done by hand. We hired extra crew, and then some of my location personnel were shoveling the snow out by hand, for days. And then they had to fill what we took out with fake snow. So we were getting rid of the real snow on the mountain and putting in fake snow so that the horses could walk through that instead.
Mm.
Quite an ordeal.
So, so there was a location that you guys ended up not using. There was a Sunset Rapids near Taos.
Yeah. So the rapids that I spoke about earlier, there was a sequence where one of our main actors was fighting a Native American, and they tumble off a cliff, fall down onto, Peter Berg is directing, so a lot of action, amazing stunts, a lot of fight, very realistic. So this was kind of the location that we're talking about that I just thought was extremely beautiful, and we had everything set up to shoot there. And because of scheduling and budget problems and safety as well, was the main concern, because, they all, Pete wants to always do the real thing. He's a director that wants to shoot real stuff. And then they tell him, you really can't do that because of all these safety requirements and, what have you. But this was the location that unfortunately didn't make it into the show. It's called the Sunset Rapids. It's the Rio Grande up near the Taos Gorge Ridge.
Mm.
And we were supposed to have a fight scene right in there. Again, beautiful terrain. Accessibility was pretty good. But ultimately, I'll share one of the scout where they're kind of talking about, so that's down there. That's where we were going to be fighting, and they were going to be tumbling into the water. But you guys can see the strength of the rapids. You know, Netflix and safety concerns, they weren't going to let us actually do it. So it's one of those gems that unfortunately didn't make it into the show, but all of the logistics, all of the permitting, you know, I had to beg BLM to make me do it. We had to make sure that all the fish that were, in season that time, I had to move the schedule. I mean, we went through a whole, 6 months of prepping this location and getting it ready and finally getting the approval. And then a week later, they're saying, yeah, we're not going to do it. So it was kind of a downer. And there was a couple, there was quite a few of those on this show where we really had to battle hard with, the government, BLM, National Forest, go through all the hoops and, take them cookies and donuts and hot coffee for months. And then they finally approve, it finally gets passed, and they're like, yeah, good. Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this, and it's like, just a letdown, I'm sure everyone's been through that,
Oh,
you
yeah.
you really want the location, you really want it to be on screen. And then unfortunately, and then like I said before, opening the show, there's so much that was shot and filmed, but it would have been like a 12 episode thing. It would have been too long. So I get it.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time, but I want to say it was a beautiful series and your hard work has really shown. So thank you.
I
And,
appreciate it.
okay, we're off to, I'm passing this on to Rizzy. Okay.
Hey,
And congratulations to the rest of the folks that got nominated.
nice work.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm here to talk about a commercial. A little bit shorter situation, but some of them, I do a lot of commercials. They all sort of blend into one, but a few of them take the full journey. And David Warren did a Army National Guard commercial that I believe was a whole bunch of key moments in what could be a longer format show, condensed into 30 or 15 seconds.
With me, okay.
Getting kind of the director's cut, but it's worth it.
Okay.
Who are you not to be uncommon? Who are you not to be one in a million? 100 million? A job is what you do, but it doesn't define you. In a world of common, it might. But you? You were born to do uncommon things for the time you've been given. When's the last time Common fought a wildfire? You brought a town back from the dark? Or stood against a rising flood? Common doesn't do that. Uncommon does that. Here, where uncommon lives are shaped, is where history will find you. A few weeks a year, and you'll discover the most uncommon time of your life.
There we go.
Super cool. Yeah, so how many prep days did you have on this, David?
Well, it's funny, when I was hearing Christian talk earlier, it's like, oh, 6 months. I'm like, we had 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, and
That's a lot of time for a commercial.
for commercials, no, it's a massive commercial for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they wanted to shoot what was essentially a 7-day action movie.
Yeah.
So, which is not a typical commercial, because we wanted to do a canyon helicopter rescue. We wanted to flood a town. We wanted to do another scene of a firefighting helicopter scooping water out of a lake. So,
And the town,
and then we
village.
wanted to do the town where we would knock out the power from a
Right.
tornado, then synchronize bringing the power back on simultaneously in the middle of the night. So there was just a lot there. So a lot of stuff with the power company and everyone else. There was just a lot of parts there, and it ended up being kind of all over the state because it's the only way you could get those locations.
Yeah, so you probably had to attack all those sort of equally and at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it really it awarded too late. So
Yeah,
I had a week to scout before the director came to town with
got
all
it.
those locations. So really a lot of the stuff by the time he got here, there was stuff we were scouting fresh, and really Valerie sitting next to me. There were times when we were director scouting towns and she was in the field I was with the director and the producer and the production designer. She was scouting simultaneously
A couple hours
a
ahead.
couple hours ahead of us, and then would text us photos and we're saying, okay, yeah, let's go see
Yeah.
that one.
Whoops.
So
Yeah.
it was just
No
that
pressure.
We're used to the fast
yeah,
and
it
furious.
was that kind of pace, but it was so different for us because the commercials are fast, but this one, because of all of the aerial and stunts and stuff like that, there was a lot of different stuff. I mean, first of all, just going to a state park and telling him I want to put a Black Hawk helicopter in the canyon to do a rescue at the bottom of the canyon. It was a
Right.
thing. And
Yeah,
I mean,
especially one that's not had the best experiences with it.
Yeah, you can share this
so
story.
Cholula Gorge State Park, it was definitely the best looking location. Like, it looks incredible. And it was a fun scouting job for me. And I basically had to go act out all the parts. I'm like, okay, well, let me go down to the bottom of the canyon and scamper around.
Which is like 900
I
to
mean,
1,000 steps down.
So
Yeah.
I got paid to go on a lot of hikes.
Right.
But
Oh.
so the place, first of all, with helicopters, their recent experience is, because the canyon is so arduous to get up out of, they have a lot of people that get in over their head and get down there and have to be rescued. So they
Right.
do a lot of helicopter rescues. There's like, oh yeah, it's all the time. But some of the old school location people in town, like, oh yeah, when we used to do these with the film office, we'd go on these helicopter scouts. He's like, oh yeah, I got a story about that canyon. He's like, helicopter guy kind of got out a little over his skis and hit the power line with the propeller, and we went down.
That happened in the 1990s.
And I was like, what? So he's like, oh yeah, we walked away from it. Suffice to say, we didn't have many more helicopter scout with the Georgia Film Office for a while after that.
Yeah, well,
And-
in LA, I'm used to losing shoot days and locations, but how's it feel to save a location? 'Cause you
Well,
obviously
yeah,
turned it around.
we didn't have to save it. I mean, it had been long enough since then, but yeah, no, it was, they were honestly,
They jumped right
They were
into it.
good.
Yep, send this helicopter right in. No
well,
problem.
what it took was the only way they were going to allow it was because we had military aviators.
Right.
And in fact, the production company originally really wanted to get a motion picture helicopter as well to do filming. And the military quickly vetoed that. Like, nope, like, we're not having anybody in the airspace that we don't control. Because then we're like, well, we'll get a drone up. Like, nope.
Nope.
Wow.
They were
So-
very
The military
conscious.
said no, or the park said no.
No, the military,
the Army.
the client, yeah.
And
So
maybe the park would let
they-
someone else do that.
No, they were very clear. So we had to just throw a camera in one of the we had 3 helicopters at one point. We had 2 picture helicopters and 1 camera helicopter, and they were all military.
Got it.
Yeah, we had an
They have to gear up at the base and then fly in, or where did they?
No, so what we did was, that's why we had Habersham County Airport, which was up in Northeast Georgia near us. And that was like our staging ground. But then we got into a situation when they were shooting the scene of the canyon rescue, where the guys eventually vetoed it about doing any more because they said it was unsafe. Though it was causing these, I'm trying to remember what the term they said, some sort of reverberations. They're like, that it was dangerous for the people they were extracting, so they didn't want to do anymore. So basically, we shot a coverage sheet at the airport of them doing an extraction they could rotoscope out.
I see.
But we have, I'm pretty sure in here, I included in the Dropbox a couple shots you can see of the helicopters.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Sasha, do you have those or?
They were in the Dropbox, but I can pull them up if y'all want me to, and they'd be under Tallulah Gorge, and that was literally day one of filming.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
Do
How
the
many
hardest
days
first.
was it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just, we kind of just had to plunge in. Because there wasn't really an easy day. I mean, there was some stuff that wasn't so much stunts, but then it was like, we're shooting in downtown, which created its own set of headaches.
But how many total days?
7.
7.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they practiced it first, pulling their own personnel. I think we have a video of it too. So if you want to check in there.
I've got a couple.
Yeah, this is kind of wild too, because
Oh yeah, here's
so they had to shut down half the park,
yeah.
which made it
And it was in the summer, so
which
it was
made
busy.
which made it very expensive.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was in July.
Surprising they even allowed you.
They're pretty film friendly here.
They were pretty film friendly. We
Mhm.
chose a good day, but even then, when they came back with their number, it was a little bit shocking for
Yeah,
us because
it's
we're used to
high.
paying anywhere from like 2,500 to 5,000 to shoot in a state park, and it was 40 grand.
Holy cow. For
Yeah, but-
personnel or for what?
Well, they were shutting down half the
Well,
park.
because they shut
They-
down
they
the
were
park.
losing revenue.
They shut down the park. They had their own Rabun County helicopter rescue standing by in case our stuff went awry.
There's a lot of
They had a
safety.
lot of staffing involved, but basically they're also like lost revenue. We're
Yeah.
closing this
Yeah.
for you.
Got it.
'Cause it was in the middle of summer. It was the busy time for them. So
Heck, at least they're willing to do it.
yeah.
Well, no, I mean that's the thing. It was really it was a long conversation that felt like we were going to get to yes, but it took a while.
Like,
And how stressful was that showing the director a place that he may or may not have?
oh, he made you go to tons of
Well,
places. he had to go all over
that
the
director was relentless.
Yeah.
There was an infamous day when we scouted multiple canyons and literally hiked. There was, in fact, it was this one. So you can hike up. It's over 1,000 steps down, and then 1,000 steps. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You can see
Okay,
them
yeah,
flying
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, and it was kind of wild because we were up on top of the cliff, not down in it, and we were above the helicopter because it was down in the canyon. Oh, you know what? This one got in the wrong one. That's not Tallulah
Oh,
Gorge.
this is
That's
the
my
flood.
fault.
Yeah.
So I put that in the wrong folder.
Oh.
But yeah, so that one really, we got to it. It honestly, it kind of depends on where on the crew you were of how hard the day was. The people that had to go up and down the canyon, the gorge, it was brutal because it was literally carrying everything down 1,000 steps. So
Crazy.
back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And lots of wild animals and at least mosquitoes.
Not
Mosquitoes,
well.
yes.
Yeah.
Wild animals,
Well,
no.
we
Oh, the
shot
snakes. There's some snakes down
this
there.
campaign was shot in late August
Yeah,
or
late-
late July and
early
early August
August.
in Georgia. So it was very
It was
hot.
about 95 degrees and 60,
Got it.
70% humidity.
Which the
every
worst
day,
the
yeah.
worst
It's brutal.
day according to all the crew by far was when we shot in the flood.
Yeah.
The flooded town.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
And was that the town you closed down? Was it Toka?
No, Toccoa was where we shot the night scene with the power
Mhm.
knocked out.
Mhm.
So of the city. So basically the whole flood thing, to tell people how we did it, there's literally only one place we could do it. They have a kind of like first responder training facility where they recreated a tank. And we've got some photos of this. It was actually
called the
kind of
Guardian
neat.
Center.
At Guardian Center.
it's the only one in the country.
That they recreated basically like lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Where you can do, and they flood it, and you can do rooftop rescues. So that's where we shot it. And
Got
it's
it.
kind of funny because when we scouted the first time, I'm like, okay, this is it. And the director's like, I don't really like it.
I'm like,
And-
that's all I get to flood.
and me and
That's
the
it.
and me and the producer are like, well, that's it.
To like it.
Option A or option A.
And then he's like, well, can we look into like building a dam around another town? And we're like,
oh, that's a great idea.
Wow.
sure, we'll look into that.
Yeah. And film it next Thursday.
But
Yeah.
the fact that the other guy was talking about American Primeval, that he had to deal with Army Corps of Engineers and do something in less than a week, that's not something you
That's
should-
extremely
that's pretty
difficult.
amazing. So,
that is amazing.
bravo.
If you have any photos,
And then they didn't use it.
I think any photos of Guardian Center would be interesting to see because we have some dry land
Yeah.
and then some wet land.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been shoot day. So that's kind of when they flood it.
Yeah. So what did you say? It's like a mosquito.
Oh, it's basically a giant mosquito
tank.
tank.
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow, that is a lot of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
That
takes
costs a lot of money too.
it takes several days to fill
To
it.
fill it.
So, and the whole thing too is like, well, it's not an exact science. Oh yeah, this was where the thing where they showed people distributing the aid. We shot this there also, and I think there was a question about builds. I wouldn't necessarily call it a build, but we put like army tents. So this is as
This is the beginning
when they're starting to
of
fill
the
it.
flood of
see.
filling it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I just had one other thing. Like, so you shut down all the power out of the town of Toccoa?
For a couple of blocks, yeah. In fact, I think I included a
Businesses
map
were good
showing
with that, or I mean,
Well, I mean, look. So Toccoa, Georgia is 2 hours outside of Atlanta. So, and we really needed to get what I call outside the orbit of Atlanta to make this feasible
Metro Atlanta.
because of what we needed to do. Because first we had to shut down the power. Now, it wasn't the whole city, but there were certain blocks that we did. And then I also had to make it look like we had a tornado come through. Yeah, I had to scout it by a drone at night.
Right.
Because the director said, well, I need to see what it looks like at night and where we're going to deal with all these street lights. And I had to go label all those lights. So, but then, yeah, we had to get the power company. I had to make sure they got all the right lights turned off. And then we had to have them with us during the shoot because then we needed to quickly be able to get them back on a queue. So,
but you had to go to each like individual
Yes.
business.
right.
Yes.
Well, yeah. And
Right.
so
Right.
I probably had about 25 contracts there for
Yeah.
that night.
That's what I'm getting at.
So yeah, there were a lot of deals to be made.
But that had to be Sunday to Monday because everything's closed Sunday. to
Yeah,
Monday.
well, here's the other thing. We wanted to do it Sunday. They're like, this has to be the last day because it's the overnight shoot. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, there's an issue. Saturday, they had a concert on the same street we wanted to shoot in.
Mm,
So I couldn't get that street till midnight.
got it.
So, and they had to clear out all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then basically our guys start bringing in like salvage cars and debris and all that stuff.
Yep.
Right. And then do the overnight.
And then, you know, within a few hours, like, man, nobody can screw up a town quite like a film crew. It doesn't take long.
Well, that's it. Yep.
But Toccoa is a little special because Toccoa is, if you've seen Band of Brothers, that is Currahee. Remember that where they did that is it's a big military history town,
when
so it's kind of
Got it.
perfect.
Well, no,
they were actually
when I
really
went, well, yeah, when I went
welcoming.
there, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a Toccoa man. And it
Yeah.
was just like,
and we
You're
love
right.
Band of Brothers.
Glutton for punishment.
and I scouted Currahee
Yeah.
for this, but it didn't work.
I see.
But it was cool. It was a cool excuse to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cool, cool commercial. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for doing that, and congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
So, I think that's all the time we have. So,
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us.
yeah. I think I'm going to pass on over Gina for talking about Dope Thief.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome Rudy Fisher, John Galloway, and Chris Grumley to this Q&A. I really enjoyed watching Dope Thief. And one thing that, you know, I got the sense that the locations, they really were a silent character. It was gritty for sure, but also, you know, there was beauty, but sadness as well. And I wanted you to talk about, you know, the Otisville farmhouse. When I asked you what was your favorite location, I really enjoyed your answer.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for having us on here. Congratulations to everybody else that was nominated as well. Dope Thief was definitely an interesting job for us in that sense of what you just said there, which it is a gritty show. It's about drugs, it's about violence, it's about crime, but it also needs to show some beauty to it too. And one of the things when I was first hired onto the job was this Ottsville farmhouse, which is the climactic ending of the pilot episode. And it was written by Peter as this it shows that it was this beauty at some point, and it has been just left for years to become this disgusting, just dilapidated place that's just like a horror movie in itself. And when I was originally scouting for the show, we're based out of Philadelphia, but South Jersey was originally the place that they had me scouting at. So when I read the script and it's literally written as Ottsville Farmhouse, I know farmhouses in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Delaware County, but I wasn't Montgomery County farmhouses. Everything's a little bit different for them. So I wanted to, before I even went out to South Jersey to look for a farmhouse, I just wanted to kind of get an idea as to what that type of thing is, because if you know Philadelphia, people will know you're not in the place that you're saying you're at because they know the farmhouses, they know Delco, they know all that. And I drove into Ottsville and I saw in the distance this farmhouse that the barn was just falling in on itself. And I said, oh my God, like I know the house is going to be this beautiful house and it's probably this barn that they don't use anymore. And I'm going to go up there and hopefully I can just take some pictures of it to get ideas for South Jersey stuff that I was scouting for. And I pulled in and the whole place it was like written for the show. It was exactly what everything that had been described was right there. And it was in the first 15 minutes of my first day on the job. So couldn't find the owner, broke onto the property, as we do sometimes with that kind of stuff, photographed it, and shared it with Ridley and Peter and Chris, and they were blown away with what they saw just with that, to the point where they really then started to push Pennsylvania with the tax credit that they needed to get from that they originally didn't have, to push being able to film in Philadelphia in the Pennsylvania for that, just off of this one day of scouting off of that, and just knowing that this was the place. And it's like one of those things where you sit there and you go, you think you found it that first time, and then you go out and you scout for another 3 months because there's something that's wrong with it, or there's something that they wanted to have something different with that. But from that day forward, Ottsville Farmhouse was basically off of our list. That was, they had to come in and look at it, but after Peter came in and looked at it, after Ridley came in and looked at it, it was tick that box, it's done. We have that one. Let's move on to the rest of the show now at this point. And it gives a great feeling on that to be able to tick that huge box so fast, but then also not have them even need to rewrite anything for it. They just was able to work around everything that was already in the script, everything that Ridley had already storyboarded out for it, and just be able to utilize that. Interior and exterior for that too. And it was with burning the place down, with the gunfight that happens in there, that all happened actually at that farmhouse.
I love that story because sometimes when you you do a hole in one on the first day, they think you're gonna, oh, give us 20 more.
Sure, absolutely, yes.
They actually saw what you saw, and they knew instinctively not to push their luck and waste energy and time and resources.
No, and the thing that was great about that is they were able to then put those resources so early on. And I mean, I know we're in a farmhouse that's outside of Philadelphia, so it's not similar to some of the other builds that people have to do when you're out in the middle of the wilderness, but they wanted to preserve the property as much as possible for filming, to the point where we had to create our base camp, our working truck. We basically created a parking lot on this property and created 2 roads that we had to have completely made from scratch for this to get all the trucks in so that we didn't damage anything while we were actually doing the prep work for this. But we had all that extra time. We all know on TV shows, it moves too quick. Sometimes you don't have that. And being able to sign off on that so fast gave us that time to be able to do all that other stuff to make it even better for that location.
Great. So tell me about the Bristol house. It never made it to the screen. But
Yeah,
when
so
reading it, I'm like, why not?
So
Anyway.
Bristol House, it's a funny story in the sense that Bristol House is the very opening of the show. It is it's Brian and Wagner. They're robbing their first drug house that the audience gets to see, and they're showing it how they seem extremely professional with this because it's from beginning to end. They're just moving through the house, getting the money, and getting out of there. Later on in the series, you realize that they're not quite as adept as they think they are at these robberies, but the Bristol House did make the show. It just was not the original Bristol House that was just this amazing, and I mean, amazing in the sense that it was an amazing location. It was right by our L in West Philly, so it had some great visual parts to it. It really had that grittiness of the city. It ticked all those boxes, but the thing that really was what upset me with it not making this one in particular not making the show is the owner of the house, Flora, was this wonderful 80-year-old woman who had no idea who Ridley Scott was, had no idea what the film industry was, but I was able to go in there and talk to her and explain what we were doing, and it was one of those things that was just it was so interesting to her, and she was just so on board with wanting to meet every crew member, whatever position they had, and Ridley going there the first day when I was originally introduced to him, they said how fast he moves through scouts, that he will go into a house and know within a minute, and he'll go out and you need to move fast with him. When we went to Flora's house, he sat there with her for about 30 minutes and they had tea together and had this conversation, neither one of them knowing each other at all, but just a conversation, not about movies, not about the script, not about anything, just about anything. And she was loved by the whole crew and they had such a good time when filming there. The issue we ran into is the whole opening of that show is just so particular about where they're doing the stakeout and how they're getting into the house and how they're doing all this. And we did multiple scouts for this one to try and figure out the best way of doing that. And we filmed it and we had an actor change. So we had to film it again, then a second time. And that was all for the pilot episode again. And we rushed through that actor change that first time. And when we had to go back to filming it a second time, that on the editing room floor, it just didn't work. So we had to go back a third time. But what they wanted to do then at that point is make it a little bit easier as far as for the audience to kind of figure out what was going on. So they went with a much just more general location for it that just kind of read easier for everybody to figure out what everybody was doing in it. And it worked out well with it, but it just is one of those things where she still talks to me to this day and she loved the experience, but she's so bummed at the end of the day that her house actually never made the cut. And for people that might be watching the show a little bit deeper, in episode 3, our DEA agents actually go to revisit that house. We actually kept her house for it. So she made just a little piece of it, but the rest of it was cut out from that.
If I read your answers to your questions, and this is a fan asking you, because it sounded like that house, it was ran by like just little kids that were underage. They were in, the meth game, but they were just, it was sad.
Right.
See. And then in the when they're doing this fake raid, a kid comes down the stairs and, you think it's going to be a meth head or whatever,
yeah.
But it was just a child, basically. Was that actor, was that scene included because they didn't have that other scene? Or
it was no, actually, so it was always written in that way with it being the children, but what you lacked in I guess with the original Bristol House to the one that you have that's in the final cut was the actual acknowledgement of the way that they originally do the raid of it. It's so fast and so visceral that you don't actually pick up on what these kids actually are. So when they redid it, they actually went more into that side of things. That's where you actually pick up then you have the kid that's running the front steps, you have the kids that are inside the house that are putting the meth together, and you have kids that are coming up and buying the meth in that scene then at that point. And in that original cut with everything else going on of the visuals of the L going by and he had dogs running down the street, it was again one of those things where just to make it a little bit easier for the audience, they decided to then shoot it that way to pick up more on that part of it.
Mm. So when I was watching, Ray's, I noticed with Ray's house, I kept seeing planes.
Yeah.
To me, it was like this, like subconscious message, to the watcher, like he's got to run.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
but he's being stubborn, and but it just like the hole gets deeper and deeper. Anyway, tell me about, choosing his house and how the airport sort of played into that decision-making process.
Yeah, so when we were scouting for the show, I ended up showing them for that location because that location plays throughout the whole show, and it really is that's the heart. She's the heart of the show. His mom, and where he can continue to go back to. It's the safe place for him. It was so important to everybody on the show. I took them to dozens of towns, dozens of neighborhoods, and nothing was really just clicking with anybody at that point. And I was losing them to a flight back to LA on the last day that they were scouting, probably like the third time they had come back into town. And I had a little bit of time right before I had to get them to the airport, but it was like cutting it very close. And I said to him, you know what? Let me take you to this town called Essington. It's right by the airport. Like it is in the flight path. So the sound man is going to hate me if you end up liking this town, but it might have kind of that look that you're looking for. And I drove them in there and we pulled onto the street. And within the first 5 minutes of them being out of the car, one of the Philadelphia International Airport flights just takes over and goes right over all of the houses in Essington. And I mean, that's daily. That's hundreds of flights coming in and going out that same way. And they saw that and they were like, and I think that that's exactly what you said there with Peter he loves that idea of that he is so stubborn when everybody's telling him to leave, that he could have gotten out of this very early on by running, but he just won't run. And part of that is because of Teresa and that her house that's there. So I think that that really factored into it. And once that neighborhood was seen, then it was just finding the house in it, which was pretty easy for us then after the fact, just knowing what town they wanted to be in. And it was just an amazing town to film in. And I mean, it's amazing. It's a little less seen in there, but there's literally a CSX tracks that trains go by constantly through there. I think we caught a shot of one of them going by, but then it's flights just over and over and over again. And I actually have that I can share with you what we kind of did for what it originally looked like and then what our designer put together um, for the actual with the planes coming overhead because we did digitally actually enhance that then afterwards. So, I mean, this is the house just with our scout photos, but then what they ended up going through with is putting it like this, and that's what you see then in the actual show as the final shot with that coming through right in episode 1. So it was pretty amazing what they were able to do with that.
Yes. Well, let's bring, Rudy and Chris, get them involved. And I want to hear what their experience was like working on this show.
It was an amazing experience. Yeah, it was great. It's funny. Rudy's
We've got
talking so
John
much.
Galloway too. We've got John Galloway too, I think.
John, you there?
I'm here.
All right, John and Chris.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chris.
No, John, I was just gonna say, while you guys were shooting the pilot and doing basically a mini Ridley Scott movie, I was scouting episode 2 and then going episodes 2 through 8. So unfortunately, even though I worked on all of Dope Thief, I never got to meet Sir Ridley Scott. So I feel like John and Rudy can talk more about the pilot and me more about sort of the rest.
Yeah, and then John, would you
Yeah,
like
so
to talk
the-
about some memorable moments working on Dope Thief?
Sure. Well, I'll go back to the neighborhood we were just talking about in Essington, which was right by the airport. We filmed there, I think, on every episode that we had. Some episodes we were there very heavily. We also had a couple other locations in addition to our main hero house. Some of the hotels that we had were in that neighborhood, so they were just great to work with the people in the neighborhood. And then for this particular show, it's kind of unique that the period of time that we were there, we all joked around that we were there for 3 Super Bowls because from the time that they started scouting, and then we had the strikes, so we had to pause for that and came back. So we were there over the period of 2.5 years, and the people in that neighborhood were just great with us, working with us, coming in over holidays, and it was just a unique in that way that I've worked on movies, television shows where you're in and out in 4 months, and this was over a very long period of time. So we got to know the people pretty well. It was a lot of fun.
Good. Well, I think at one point, I mean, were you able to see Santa Claus going by the exterior
We
location?
did. So there
Yeah.
was we had a meeting with the township, and Rudy had come with me to that meeting. And I guess one of the issues was that there was the Christmas parade that was going through the town on the night we were going to film. And there was some opposition from certain people from the town that, they didn't want us disrupting that. We would disrupt their normal path. And they were willing to grant us the permission to kind of still shut down the area we needed to and reroute the parade. And credit to Rudy, he was like, no, we've been here and disrupted these people enough. Let's work around it. And if we can work with the fire department, that was kind of the ones organizing the parade, let's get an idea of what time they're going to be coming through. We'll work with our ADs, which were nice enough to work and schedule around that. And in the middle of filming, I'm on the phone getting, okay, Santa's 7 minutes away, so then I'm going to the ADs and giving them the heads up. And we actually shut everything down for a minute, moved everything out of the way, let the fire trucks with Santa come through, throw out candy to the kids. And I mean, it all happened in a matter of 2 minutes, but just the kind of preparation for that, and it was cool that we could not disrupt that for the neighborhood for, after everything they did for us to allow it to happen. So that was kind of
our crew actually thought that we had set that up for them to have Santa Claus come through the neighborhood for them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit nicer than a coffee truck.
Yeah.
You're just trying to mix it up.
Yeah, it was
Definitely
a couple
something
days before
different.
Christmas, so it was nice. It was fun for the crew. It was fun for everybody. I don't know if it was fun for our ID. She was having a heart attack, but for everyone else, it was fun.
You know what? It's nice giving some. It's we're gonna wrap it up because we're out of time. But I just want to say, every now and then it's just nice saying, let the neighborhood have it. Because
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
just kind of forcing our will, but doing it so smoothly. And it's just nice to say, hey, you know what? Let them have this, and then you get it, and then so. All right. Well, I think that's it for now, for us. I guess we're going to be moving on with Sasha and the Penguin.
I'm here with Keith Adams, who is the supervising location manager of the Penguin. He's also worked on Salem's Lot and Gotham. The Penguin in particular was filmed extensively in and around New York City, with real locations being transformed into the gritty atmospheric world of Gotham City. I have so many questions about this project. I really enjoyed watching the series. One question that I have, this being sort of on the heels of the Batman, was there an aesthetic directive for scouting? Like, did they want some sort of a visual tie-in with the Batman to a degree? And then there are some other issues that come up with that as well, seeing as the Batman was filmed in England and the Penguin was filmed in New York City. So there must have been things that you had to like match, movie for series that, just didn't exist, and you had to find something like as similar. So I'm curious about that.
It's a great question. And thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Penguin.
it was you know, an amazing project to work on, and super excited about the amount of accolades it's getting on every level. You know, it was Matt Reeves himself was very involved at the beginning of the project. He was really excited about the project being able to be shot in New York. He had wanted to do the Batman in New York, and you know, was unable to because of tax and, you know, incentives and finances. So, you know, they struggled a bit to kind of create that Gotham look, and he was excited that we were able to have so many options to work with and wanted to expand the palette of what they did in the film. We did have to directly match the Iceberg Lounge location, which is what the show opens with, the whole flooded out kind of Iceberg Lounge where Oz goes in, and where he, you know, kills um, the young Falcone son. So that was really tricky. We you know, we had a lot of still frames from the movie, and we found kind of a fairly shot location up in Harlem, on 135th Street underneath the elevated there, and it was a perfect match. And then Kalina Ivanov and her team, our production designer, they built a big facade piece, and we brought in all of the flood materials, and we dumped truckloads of dirt everywhere, and it was a really big set, and a sort of first kind of touchdown for the project in the city of what the type of scope that we were going for. And it was challenging to get all of that cleared and approved by the city, but that needed to be a direct match. And then from there, it was more expanding on the world, and kind of creating a new world for Oz that was grittier than some of the stuff in the movie, and that kind of was able to tell his story of where he came from. There's a lot of talking
Because
about.
it seemed like, you know, like there was some visual similarities, but Oz has his own different world, and is a character who is, you know, kind of historically sort of subterranean by nature. And I feel like we kind of got to see a lot of that with, like, whether it was grit or darkness, or even you know, like a lot of stonework and underground sort of locations.
Yes, and that whole, I was, you know, especially proud of that tunnel network. And then, you know, that all ended up being the Bliss Lab in the abandoned trolley station, which was the Kingsbridge Armory in Kingsbridge in the Bronx, which is this beautiful old building that we built a set into, which was really quite a gorgeous location. And Kalina, we were able to use a lot of the architecture of the building and kind of build a set into it. But the actual lead up to the to the Bliss Lab and to the abandoned trolley station was a network of tunnels, and that was a really challenging thing to figure out. The exterior where Oz remembers, you know, as a kid going to, and there's also a flashback that was in Astoria, Queens, and we dressed this whole area there, another flooded out area, and then we did a flashback there that was an 80s thing. And then the interior tunnels was shot in Fort Totten out in Queens, which was a Civil War fort. And we basically scouted pretty much every shootable tunnel in all of New York. And it was a
How
lot of
many
work.
are there? How many shootable tunnels are there in New York? I'm so curious.
There's not a ton. You know, there are little ones or some kind of, you know, basement spaces, but ones that really look old. I mean, I don't know, maybe, you know, four or five of them. And ones that are actually in the five boroughs, it's even less. So that was a lot of work. And in the show, it's very fast, the whole journey through, but it's really cool. And if you watch it, you know, slow, you know, rewatch it, you kind of can just see how much work went into it, and just it really all came together really beautifully. I was proud of that one.
So how cooperative was the city with the scope of this project? Because, you know, like, you see filming in New York all the time, but this is huge. Especially the dresses that you were doing, like with the exteriors that looked like, you know, you were transforming exterior neighborhoods completely.
Yeah, they were on board, but everything was very difficult to push through. The Crown Point flood zone location we could not do in the city. We ended up doing that in Yonkers,
Okay.
in the Rockley section of Yonkers. That was such an expansive set with, basically the city has kind of rules about how long you can have a street for, how long you can dress things for. And that took several days to dress, and we had to end up holding it. So we couldn't do that in the city. That was just too big. But we did do the Iceberg Lounge, as I said, and we did the explosion, post Bliss Lab explosion where Sophia blows up the
Mhm.
trolley station.
Yeah.
That kind of post, 9/11 looking world. We did that in the Bronx, and that was a really, really big dress as well. There was a lot of that ash kind of material, and we had to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to prove that that was, biodegradable, that we can clean it up. We had to put, tarps to cover everything in plastic, essentially. That was really challenging. On that one, we were smart. We scouted a dead end street.
Okay.
Purposely, just because we were like, there's no way we're going to be able to do this on a street that has through traffic because, as you probably, in every city, I mean, they, maintaining a fire lane is critical, but there we could get away with, having some cars that were on the sides, and then on the shoot day, we would like move them into position, and that one was great. And I'll send you a bunch of pictures, and maybe you can kind of, in the edit you can pop them in and stuff, because there's a lot of great material, behind the scenes stuff, for all of
Actually, if
that.
you have any of those, like pull some of those up now. We can a little
Okay.
sidebar for some visuals.
All right. Yeah, I do. Let's see. They're just not as organized as I was hoping I could make them. Okay, this one's good. All right. So yeah. All right. I'll share my screen here with you.
Okay.
Okay. So here's some images of the Kingsbridge Armory, the abandoned trolley station set, which really, so all, the walls that you see there, that was all the real location. And then Kalina built these tunnels here where you see the trolleys coming in. That's all fake. She put like this little barber shop in there. But like this, oops, this was all actually, they built that, but there's like real building behind it. So it was an interesting hybrid. You don't see that too often where it's kind of built into the location,
Mhm.
which we were really excited about, and it was a huge set. Then I think you were asking in your oh, never mind, sorry. This is the tunnel entrance location, um, out in Astoria, Queens.
Okay.
So you can see some of the flood dress here. It was easier to do this in an outer borough, than it was, when we did some stuff in Manhattan. This is a fake. That's a set
Yeah, that
piece
was that
here.
was another question I had because there are a lot of scenes with like exterior elevated subway stations, which they're really like aren't in New York City proper. So how far out into the boroughs did you have to go to get those? And then further to that, like are you working with a schedule of real subway trains in the background or
We did.
movie trains?
Well, it's a good question because some of it was some of it is VFX. So
Okay.
they added it in places where we didn't, where it didn't exist. So you could see things in the background. But we did shoot on a real subway train and a real elevated subway train. There are, there are quite a few. There's more than you would think. And we had a subway for a day, and we kind of figured out that was for the pilot for the first episode, and we kind of worked it out so that there was a part of the run that was above ground, and then we went underground, and we had Oz. It was a whole long sequence that they ended up editing down quite a lot.
Okay.
Um, but it was we had to rent a real subway for that and coordinate all that. It was kind of a crazy thing. It's a lot of work to do that in the city. This is just a good picture of like what the real tunnels look like at Fort Totten. Um, which look great. And in this particular tunnel, if you watch a show, like we put water everywhere and we had water running down this actual hill so that it felt like it was, a sewer kind of area, very penguiny. You can see them kind of walking down this tunnel. And um, here's a whole bunch of pictures of Crown Point, where you could actually see more clearly kind of what we did. So this is Yonkers, and it was so much stuff, and it was the coldest time of the year, and it got so cold that we had to cancel the shoot and push it off because of the weather, and we ended up having to leave this poor neighborhood dressed like this for like 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
This is a
Yeah.
Zoo Liquors building, which and you could see the Bella Real. She was in the movie as well. And this had a great sign on top that was fake. And here's they had to move a lot of cars around with um, a high-low. So we really a lot of what you see in the Crown Point stuff was real. And it was way more expansive than kind of what ended up in the show. But there's me, and that's a pretty nice bird's eye view of the set. And Yonkers was very generous and allowed us to close off the entire street for a really long time. In the city, it's a lot harder to do that. You could see they brought in. This was like a the front of like a house. This was like some other set from some other show, and they brought
Okay.
it in to look like a flood zone. Um, so that was, really, really special and fantastic, and it was an all hands on deck kind of a thing. And the weather definitely made things a lot more difficult. But
How big
yeah,
was your team? How big was your team for this?
my team was anywhere from 20 to 25. It ranged. It was a large team. It was myself, two key assistant location managers, two standard location managers, which I know that they might not have that delineation in other places, and then a lot of location assistants. The parking department obviously is under
Right.
me as well, and that's probably there were probably 50 people on that. So it was a big team, three full-time scouts, and yeah, long job, big team. Yeah.
What was the like how long did you spend from pre-production to wrap basically? How many months was that?
It was a long time because it happened during the strikes.
Okay.
So I think I started, and I the producers on the Penguin were fantastic, just A-list, top-notch producers, and they knew it was going to be a really hard show, and they were like, we're going to start the creative, the scouting and the production design really early. So I started scouting on it in the summer of 2022. We shot in the winter of 2023 until the strikes shut us down. Then we went, and then we weren't done. We were almost exactly halfway done. We were like on episode 4 of 8, and the strike shut us down. We stayed. Then my team stayed on and scouted more until there was like, we just tried to get ahead. We hadn't, shot at the armory yet. Where there was like a lot of work to do. So we stayed on and scouted more. Then we had the summer off, and then we came back in the fall of I guess it was the fall of 23, and re-prepped and prepped everything again and started shooting again and shot until the spring of 2024. So I was on the show for
That
like
is that's like years.
yeah, but it was, and it
I mean,
was
it looks great. Another thing I was wondering about was there's a fair amount of driving work. Some of it's like in the city and some of it seems to be like on bridges. I know how fun and chaotic that can be. So do you have
yeah.
any stories about that?
Yeah. Well, you know, two things to say about that. One, there was a very important sequence to everybody at the beginning, which shows Oz and taking Victor out to the Falcone Mansion for the first time, and to make a very clear delineation between the grime and poverty of Gotham and the elitist pastoral world of the Falcones, and to show very clearly where Oz came from and then what he aspires to, which he talks about a lot in the show. So we did real driving work, a whole very complicated, you know, sequence. It ended up not being impossible. The shooting of it was a lot easier, but figuring it out, we shot on the George Washington Bridge and we turned that into the kind of storied Elliott Bridge of the comics, which is mentioned in the show. I think it's going to be in the Batman 2 movie, from what I understand. There's sort of a whole Gotham kind of story about that. And then we shot a bunch of stuff out near the Falcone Mansion.
Where was that mansion, the Falcone
It's
Mansion?
it's in Long Island, in Upper Brookville on the Gold Coast, and it
Nice.
was an Italian Renaissance 40-room villa built in 1915. It's spectacular. It was restored by the owners in the last decade, and it's just one of the most beautiful properties I've ever seen. It's on, you
Were
know.
you able to have all of production on property for that with this particular estate?
No, we use the
I mean,
plant.
I don't mean like base camp and crew parking, but like, you know, the usual GAC that we have while we're actually filming.
Yes, but it was very, very restrictive. And understandably, the person who represents the owners there was wonderful. They were wonderful to work with, but it's such a gem of a property that there were a lot of rules. We got it done, but we had to be very, very, very buttoned up about everything we did there, and very well planned, and a lot of protection, even protecting lawns. And you know, it was always a mixed bag of what we could do, what we couldn't do, how we did things. It was very challenging, but it went really well, and they would have us back, I'm proud to say. if
Did
if
you
it
have
broke down.
similar parameters with a lot of the upscale restaurants that you were filming in?
No,
Less
restaurants,
so?
yeah, they're a bit easier. They're just with the restaurants is really, it's more of just coming up with a, you know, as we, you know, our colleagues know, just it's all about the timeline for a restaurant, and like a buyout price, and it's just like, this is what you get. You have to work it out. You don't get to do the big long rigging and the prep. Like, everything's in a very tight window in the high-end restaurants, because you just can't afford to shut something if, you know, you're paying 50 to 100,000 a day to shut something down. You're not going to be able to, you know, everyone has to be very buttoned up about what they want to do in there and how they're going to do it. So a lot of scouting. And one thing I'll say about the Penguin, overall as a job, was on anything I've ever worked on, it was the most location scouting I've ever done. The creative team, the directors were fantastic, and we just scouted over and over again, went back and back and back and back. I mean, the Crown Point location, we probably scouted that 20 different times. I mean, so, you know, and I say that to our colleagues just because, you know, as a locations person, I like scouting. I want to scout. The more we scout, the more we know. The more we know, the better job we can do, the better prepared we can be. And we scouted a lot, you know, so it was
What
helpful.
about Oz's mom's house? That looks like that was probably in the outer boroughs somewhere.
Yes, that was in Forest Hills, Queens, and that was a long search to find something that had a look to it that felt like it could be, you know, everyone wanted it to feel like Oz was hiding his mother in a place that was very kind of, it felt very mundane, and that there were all these houses that looked the same, and he had her in one of them. And we looked at, you know, 50 different neighborhoods for that. And the location where he comes in on the train was in Kew Gardens, which is the area next to Forest Hills. And it took a long time to find that, but it was perfect. And then the interior was a build, and that was perfect. It looked amazing.
Um, Are there any sort of like specific scenes that have come up in the show that were like maybe particularly challenging that sort of give you a giggle when you see it because you know what was going on behind the scenes and you know the layperson might not have any idea?
Um, you know, so many because the show, and I mean, but probably, yeah, the probably the one that stands out. I mean, just to say generally about the Penguin was, obviously the makeup application that Colin Farrell had to undergo was so intense, and it took a long time for the production to figure out how that was going to work, and it basically was determined very probably 2 weeks before we started shooting that he was not going to be able to do that. He was only going to be able to work like 3 days a week.
Okay.
And we had been planning and planning, and the whole schedule got tossed out the window because it had to be like he would work for a day and then he needed a day off because his skin could not handle it. So we also endured COVID, insane weather, the strikes. So many things happened. But one thing that was kind of, unnecessarily crazy that only like my team really knows about was in the location at the beginning where Oz takes Victor to the junkyard where it seems like he's going to kill Victor.
Mhm.
It just We found this junkyard out in deep East New York, Brooklyn, and just the owner was just crazy and we didn't realize it until it was too late. And we had to like jump through so many hoops to be able to do anything there. It was so like the amount of negotiating with these crazy lawyers, and it was just insane for what it ended up being, which was really quite a simple, quiet little dramatic scene. There was really nothing to it, but it was so much work and so much stress. And that one I always kind of get a chuckle out of. Um, it was just, only our people who do what we do understand how something so that appears to be so simple can be so Byzantine and complex, to pull off. So that one I get a laugh about.
Oh, we certainly understand. I think that's probably about all the time that we have, but thank you so much for sharing all of your stories about this fantastic project and can't wait to see what you do next. All right. And that was Keith Adams from the Penguin. And I did want to mention also that was nominated for a Directors Guild Association Award, which for those who don't know, that is the union that represents location managers in New York. And with that, that concludes all of our Meet the Finalists Zoom panels. Congrats again to everyone who is nominated and good luck at the awards. Many thanks again to all of our moderators and especially to Erica Howard, who is helping me out behind the scenes. And everybody have a great rest of your Sunday.